Hello everyone, welcome back to Journey with Data. So let's move ahead in this upskilling process. This video basically covers Python data types and variables all from scratch and as a part of our ongoing Python tutorial series. Part 1 was already discussed, which focused on Python features and applications. I will post the link in the description box below. So let's proceed.
Since Python is an object-oriented programming language, so everything in Python is an object. And a data types, talking in very simpler terms, means how a programmer wishes to use the data. The classification of data, basically. Now, this categorization is divided into mutable and immutable data type, and basis this mutability and immutability, we have a further segregation of data types. Now, a mutable data type or anything which is mutable is something whose value can be changed. That's a very basic definition. And immutability is something whose value cannot be changed. Now, basis this immutability and mutability, we have further segregation of data types. Now, you have under immutable data type, you have numeric, string, and tuple. And under mutable, you have list, sets, dictionaries. And this numeric data type is further divided into integer, float, and complex numbers. Now we'll be basically seeing this mutability and immutability through a basic practical example, and we shall also be discussing what a list is, set, dictionary, a numeric data type or a string data type through some basic examples. However, we will be covering the detailed part of what a list is or how to modify a list, what are the various operations that can be performed on a list in our upcoming videos. So let's see what this mutability and immutability is. So let's have a look at these data types through a practical example. So I am using Jupyter Notebooks, and if you notice at this cell, I have created a variable x with a value of 5 and another variable y1 with a value of high, and so on. Now, in order to know the data type of any variable, all you need to do is just use this type keyword, and I am just printing the type of this variable. And if I run this cell, you will see that this belongs to an integer class, or in simpler terms, we can say that this variable x is an integer. And let's move on to this variable y1, which has a value of high. And now if I print the type of this variable, you can notice that this belongs to a string data type. Now, a string can either be written in a single quote or can be enclosed in double quotes, or if your string spans across multiple lines, you can use triple quotes or so. So that's how you write a string. So just notice here the data type of this. I have also printed the variable y. This also belongs to a string data type. And this is another variable which belongs to a string data type as well. Now, there is a very interesting thing about strings. It is that you can access the individual elements of a string as well. Now, let's say if I want to access this string individually, for example, if I want to access P, Y, T, H, and so on individually. Now, how do I do that? We can do that using indexing. However, we will be covering this indexing and slicing in detail in our upcoming videos, but then I'll just demonstrate it through a very simple example. So if you look at this diagram, you can see that I have written the string Python series, and I've listed out all the elements individually. Now, in order to access these elements, we will use the indexing method. Now, remember that the indexes, they'll start from 0 till length -1. Now, because you know that this is a Python series variable, now the index will start from starting from P they will start from 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on till length -1. Now if I want to access a p, or the first element of this string, you will see that this element is nothing but the first element is y in this case. If I want to access the fourth element, or perhaps the fifth element, which is n in this case, now let's see, this is n. So this is how you access the individual elements, by using indexing method. So that was about strings. Now let's have a look at some more examples. Now I have a data type, I have a variable z which contains a value of 2.5. Now similarly, I'm just repeating the exercise that I did earlier, just printing the data type of this. So if you can see it here, this belongs to a float class, meaning that this has a decimal value associated with it, so it belongs to a decimal class, or a float class. Now another variable var1 var1 has a value of 2 plus 3j. I have also printed out that variable. It belongs to a complex data type. Any complex data type, as we had we know, or we might have read in our previous classes in schools, that a complex number contains a real and an imaginary part. So that's why this is a complex variable. And similarly, var2 belongs to a Boolean data type, because it contains either a value of true or false. Now there is another method called as isInstance, which helps you check if an object belongs to a particular class or not. For example, if I want to check if x is an integer, so I'll use isInstance. So I've done the similar thing here. I've just used isInstance and then x, and I'm just checking if x is an integer, and in this case I'm checking if x is a string or not. But originally x is nothing but an integer data type, as we all know, because it contains a value of 5. So the isInstance will yield true in this case and false in the second scenario. So this is how isInstance works. Now as we talked about mutability and immutability, and you cannot assign values, or you cannot change values to an immutable object. For example, let's take a string, our original string, which was this Python series, or let's take this string hi. Now if I access the individual elements, and if I try to modify any of the individual elements, I should get an error, because a string is immutable. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I am accessing the 0th element and changing it to t. Now if I print this, you will see let me take this variable y, and it contains a value of hi. Now if I'm trying to modify the 0th element of this, which is h in this case, I'm just trying to change it from h to t. So notice here I'm getting an error called string doesn't support item assignment. So that's what we mean by immutability. Now there is an exception to immutability, which is when our variable consists of lists as well. So if you just have a look at this diagram, list is a mutable list belongs to a mutable class. So if a variable contains a list and another set of string, then for example here I have created a variable called tup containing a list and a variable and another value containing a string. Now if I just look at this value, the element at 0th position, and let me take the element at 0th position. Now if I just modify the first element from this index, it is 6 and let me change it to 8 now. And let me print this. You will see that this has been modified to 8 without even getting an error. Now if I repeat the same thing with this string, I will get an error. Now let me print this. This is ABC and I'll access the 0th element of this string. This is A, and let me change it to N now. So I'll get an error because string belongs to a immutable class. So that was about mutability and immutability, and we shall be discussing other data types like lists, sets, dictionaries in our next video.